My name is Jessica Miller. I used to believe I was married to a man who would never betray me. Ryan was handsome, successful, and knew exactly how to make people trust him. We had been together for almost 8 years. Everyone who knew us thought we were the perfect couple. But I knew deep down something wasn't right. Ryan's job required him to travel often. At least that's what he always told me. He worked for a consulting firm that had offices across the country. Or so he claimed. It started with short trips to nearby cities. Dallas to Houston. Dallas to San Antonio. Then the trips grew longer. Chicago, New York, sometimes even Los Angeles. Every time he would pack his sleek black suitcase, kiss me goodbye, and promise to call me before bed. At first, I thought it was normal. Lots of people travel for work. I never wanted to be the paranoid wife, but little cracks began to show. One time he claimed he was in Denver, but I found a receipt from a steakhouse right here in Dallas. Another time, I smelled perfume on his shirt, something floral and sweet, and it wasn't mine. When I asked, he brushed it off. "Hotel laundry soap, babe," he said, laughing. But my gut told me otherwise. Each time he left, the pit in my stomach grew bigger. I stopped sleeping well. I stopped trusting his voice on the phone. He'd say, "I'm so tired, I'm heading to bed," but I could hear music in the background. I could hear laughter that wasn't mine. One night, while folding his laundry, I discovered something I couldn't explain away. A hotel keycard, not from one of the usual chains he used. It was from a boutique hotel downtown, a place Ryan had no reason to be. I sat on the floor holding it in my hand, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. Why would he have this? That was the moment I knew. He wasn't just lying about work. He was lying about everything. But if I confronted him without proof, he would twist it back on me. He was smooth. He was calculated. He knew how to make me feel like I was overreacting, so I decided I needed undeniable evidence. That week, I ordered a GPS tracker online. It was tiny, easy to hide, and connected straight to an app on my phone. When it arrived, my hand shook as I held it. It felt like I was crossing a line, but I reminded myself, Ryan had crossed it first. The night before his next business trip, he packed his bag as usual. He shoved neatly folded shirts, ties, and polished shoes into the suitcase. He whistled while he zipped it shut, like nothing was wrong. "Chicago this week," he said casually, giving me that practiced smile. I forced myself to smile back. "Good luck," I whispered while my heart raced. That night, after he fell asleep, I carefully unzipped the case. I tucked the tracker deep into a pocket, making sure it was hidden under the lining. My breath was shaky, my palms sweaty, but I did it. The next morning, I watched him roll the suitcase out the door. He kissed me quickly, said he'd call when he landed, and hopped into the Uber waiting outside. The second the car drove away, I opened the app. A blue dot appeared on the map. My chest tightened as I watched it move. I expected it to head straight to the airport. But it didn't. It turned toward the city instead. I stared at the screen in disbelief. The car stopped. The dot blinked, sitting still. And when I zoomed in, I saw the name of the location. A hotel. Not Chicago. Not New York. Not anywhere close to what he told me. Just a hotel 30 minutes from our house. My entire body went cold. He hadn't even bothered to leave town. All those excuses. All those flights. All those kisses goodbye. They were nothing but lies. I sat frozen on the couch, phone clutched in my hand, watching the tracker stay in the same spot. For hours it didn't move. That was when I knew he wasn't alone. Someone was with him in that room. I felt the anger rise inside me like fire. My hands shook, but it wasn't from fear anymore. It was from rage. I had given him everything. My loyalty, my trust, my heart, and he had thrown it all away for a secret life just a few miles away. I stared at the blinking dot on my phone, and I made a promise to myself. He thought he was clever. He thought he was untouchable. But he had no idea who he was dealing with, and I was going to make sure that when I confronted him, it wouldn't just end his lies. It would end his entire double life. I couldn't stop staring at the blinking dot on my phone. Ryan was just sitting there in that hotel. I imagined him laughing, holding someone else, while I sat alone in our house. My stomach churned with every second that passed. I wanted to drive over right then, pound on the door and watch his face crumble. But I knew I had to be smarter. He was too good at lying. If I caught him without undeniable proof, he would twist it. He'd gaslight me, make me think I was crazy, and somehow I would end up apologizing. I wasn't going to let that happen this time. I needed leverage. I needed a plan. So I spent the night pacing the living room, my phone in my hand, watching that tracker. It didn't move once. By morning, I had barely slept a wink. But Ryan texted me like nothing was wrong. "Landed safe," he wrote with a smiley face at the end. I stared at the message and almost laughed. He wasn't even on a plane. He was just across town, pretending to be a husband on a business trip. The sheer arrogance of it made my blood boil. That day I drove past the hotel. I didn't go inside. I just parked across the street and stared at the entrance. Every time the doors slid open, I thought I might see him walk out. But he didn't. I sat there for hours, rehearsing what I would say when the moment came. In my head, I saw his face when I revealed everything. The lies would collapse around him, and he would finally see that I wasn't weak anymore. That night, I couldn't take it any longer. I packed a small bag of my own. Inside, I slipped my phone charger, my wallet, and a folder with every little piece of evidence I had collected so far. The receipts, the keycard, screenshots of suspicious messages. I even printed the GPS log from the tracker. If I was going to war, I was bringing ammunition. The next morning, I woke up early. I showered, put on my nicest jeans and a clean white blouse. I wanted to look composed. I wanted him to see strength, not the broken woman he thought I was. I drove to the hotel, my heart racing with every turn of the wheel. When I pulled into the parking lot, I almost couldn't breathe. There it was, Ryan's car. He had lied about flying, and his damn car was parked right in front of the building. My hands clenched around the steering wheel. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the front doors, waiting for the courage to move. Finally, I grabbed my phone, took a deep breath, and stepped out. The cool morning air hit me, sharp and biting. My heels clicked against the pavement as I walked across the lot. I pushed through the revolving door and entered the lobby. It smelled faintly of fresh coffee and polished wood. The receptionist smiled politely, but I ignored her. I already knew exactly where he was. The tracker showed me the room number. 14th floor. Room 1412. The elevator ride felt endless. My heart pounded in my ears and my palms were slick with sweat. When the doors finally opened, I forced myself forward. The hallway was quiet, carpet muffling my steps. I stopped in front of 1412, staring at the numbers on the door. This was it. This was where my husband was hiding. I raised my hand to knock, but froze. What if he wasn't inside? What if I was wrong? But the tracker never lied. He was here. I could feel it in my bones. I tightened my grip on my phone, steadied my breath, and knocked firmly 3 times. There was silence at first, then footsteps. My chest tightened. The lock clicked, and the door cracked open. And there he was. Ryan. His face drained of color the second he saw me. "Jessica?" He stammered, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like he couldn't breathe. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of movement. A woman's shadow. She gasped and ducked back behind the doorframe. Ryan tried to block the view, stepping forward, but it was too late. I had seen enough. All the lies. All the excuses. They had led to this moment. I lifted my phone, the tracker app still glowing on the screen. My hands no longer trembled. My voice came out steady, even cold. "You told me you were in Chicago," I said. His lips parted, searching for an excuse. But no excuse could save him now. Ryan's body filled the doorway like a wall. His arms spread wide as if he could somehow shield me from the truth. But the truth was already spilling out from behind him. The faint sound of bare feet scurrying across the carpet, the sharp intake of a woman's breath, and the unmistakable smell of perfume, the same one I'd noticed on his shirts. I tilted my head, eyes narrowing, refusing to let him block me. "Move," I said quietly. He shook his head, stammering, "Jessica, please, this isn't what it looks like." I almost laughed. The cliché of his words only made me angrier. "Really?" I snapped, because it looks exactly like what I thought it was. I pushed forward, and though he tried to resist, I shoved him back just enough to see. There she was, a brunette in her late 20s, clutching the sheets to her chest as if fabric could hide her shame. Her eyes went wide, terrified like a child caught stealing. She looked at Ryan, then at me, and her lips trembled. I almost pitied her, but then I remembered every night I spent alone, every lie he fed me, every time I doubted my own instincts, and the pity vanished. Ryan reached for my arm, but I jerked away. "Don't touch me," I hissed. My phone was still in my hand, the tracker glowing on the screen. I flipped the camera open, raising it in front of them both. Ryan's face drained of color. "Jessica, don't," he pleaded, stepping toward me. But I pressed record. The woman gasped, pulling the sheets tighter, ducking behind him. I zoomed in, capturing the fear in her eyes, the sweat glistening on his forehead, the guilt painted across their faces. "You lied about Chicago," I said calmly. "You lied about all of it. And now I have proof." Ryan lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but I backed up into the hallway. "Jessica, stop. Please, we can work this out." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing down the quiet corridor. "Work this out? You've been working it out in hotel beds while I sit at home believing every word you said." The woman peeked out again, her voice trembling. I didn't know he was married. Her words stung less than I expected. I didn't care about her excuses. She was just another part of his lies. My focus was on him. Ryan reached for me again, his voice desperate now. "If you send that to anyone, it'll ruin me. Please, Jess, think about what you're doing." I steadied my grip on the phone. "Oh, I've been thinking," I whispered. "For months. While you lied. While you pretended. While you gaslit me into believing I was crazy." His mouth opened, but no words came. The silence between us burned hotter than any scream. I lowered the phone for just a second and looked him straight in the eye. "You told me you were in Chicago, but the only thing you packed was betrayal." I raised the phone again and snapped a photo of him standing in the doorway with her hiding behind him. The sound of the shutter cut through the air like a gunshot. Ryan's face twisted with panic. "Jessica, don't do this!" But it was already too late. I had exactly what I needed. I spun on my heel, storming down the hall toward the elevator. Ryan's footsteps pounded behind me. "Jessica, wait," he begged, but I didn't turn around. The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. He reached the doors just as they were closing. For one last second, our eyes locked. His were wild, desperate, pleading. Mine were cold, steady, unbreakable. As the doors shut between us, I whispered one word. "Goodbye." The ride down was silent except for the sound of my heart hammering in my chest. When the doors opened, I walked straight through the lobby, past the receptionist who gave me a curious glance. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Outside, the air felt sharper, clearer, like I was finally breathing for the first time in months. I slid into my car, locked the doors, and set my phone on the passenger seat. The video was saved, the photo was saved, and in that moment I realized I had power again. Ryan thought he could live two lives, but now one of them was about to end, and I was going to make sure of it. I sat in the car with my hands gripping the steering wheel. The city lights blurred through my windshield as my vision swam with rage. My chest rose and fell like a storm was trapped inside me. The video played back on my phone, crystal clear. Ryan, half-dressed, panic in his eyes. Her, cowering behind him like a guilty shadow. Every second of it captured. Evidence, proof, ammunition. For months he made me feel insane, paranoid, insecure. But now I had the truth. Cold, undeniable, and sharp as a knife. I tapped my screen, opening my contacts. His boss's number was right there. So was HR. So was our lawyer, the one we'd used when we bought the house. I hovered over each name, my finger trembling. Who deserved to know first? My gut told me, his job. He had always bragged about being the golden employee, the one who could do no wrong, the one the company couldn't survive without. He used business trips as a cover for betrayal, so maybe it was fitting that his career be the first casualty. I drafted the email, attaching the video and photo. The subject line was simple. Proof of misconduct during company time. My finger hovered over send. But then a wicked thought struck me. Why stop there? Why not let the world know the truth? I could torch his entire life in one night. But revenge is sweeter when served carefully, step by step, strike by strike, until he has nothing left. My phone buzzed violently. It was Ryan calling. I declined. A second later, a text popped up. "Jess, please, let's talk. Don't ruin me." "I can explain," I scoffed. "Explain?" "Explain how he turned me into the fool. Explain why I spent sleepless nights wondering why his shirt smelled like perfume. Explain why his suitcase always seemed lighter than a man gone for a week." No, there was no explanation. Only consequences. The phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. I answered, my voice sharp. "Hello?" A woman's shaky voice answered. "Jessica, please, don't send that video. I swear I didn't know he was married." It was her. The woman from the hotel room. I froze for a beat, then laughed coldly. You really think this is about you? I spat. You're just a side character in a story that ends with him losing everything. She stammered. But if you send it, my life... I cut her off. Good. Maybe next time you'll think before climbing into a married man's bed. And then I hung up. The anger inside me burned hotter, but so did my clarity. This wasn't about her. This was about him. The man I married. The man who looked me in the eye and lied without hesitation. I lifted my phone again. And this time, I pressed send. The email flew into cyberspace, delivered to his boss in HR in one swift motion. My chest tightened, then loosened, like a weight had been ripped off me. The first blow was dealt. I pictured Ryan standing in that hotel room, his phone lighting up with notifications, his career unraveling before his eyes, his reputation disintegrating, and I wasn't finished. I leaned back in the driver's seat, closing my eyes for a moment. Memories flooded in, our wedding day, his vows, his promises. All of it ashes now, but beneath the pain, a spark of strength glowed. He thought he broke me, but he didn't know what I was capable of. Not yet. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my best friend, Emily. She sent a text. Hey, are you okay? Ryan just called me in a panic. What's going on? Of course he did. Running to anyone who would listen, begging for sympathy. I typed back slowly. Don't worry. You'll see soon enough. I put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. The night air was crisp, and the city streets stretched ahead like a battlefield. I wasn't just leaving a hotel. I was leaving behind the woman he thought I was. The forgiving wife, the blind believer. That woman was gone. The one behind the wheel now was something different. Sharper, colder, stronger. And as I drove home, I whispered to myself, this is only the beginning. I used to believe I could survive anything, but that night taught me otherwise. By the time the sun rose the next morning, I was ready for war. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ryan's face when I appeared at that hotel door. The shock, the guilt, the desperation. I replayed it again and again until my fury transformed into focus. I padded into the kitchen, brewed a pot of coffee, and opened my laptop. There it was, confirmation. The email I'd sent to HR had been received. 2 little check marks that meant Ryan's golden boy reputation was already cracking. I pictured him, waking up in that hotel bed, grabbing his phone, and seeing his entire career shatter with one video. It was almost too easy, but I wasn't stopping there. I began gathering everything. Bank statements, phone records, credit card bills with charges from hotels, restaurants, and jewelry stores I never saw. He thought he was clever, but cheaters always leave trails, and I was following every breadcrumb. My phone rang around 8 a.m. It was Ryan. I let it buzz until voicemail. A minute later, another call. This time his mother. Her voice was frantic on the voicemail. Can we talk? She asked. I deleted it without hesitation. He could run to his family all he wanted. I wasn't backing down. By noon, the first email came in. HR had launched an official investigation. They thanked me for providing the evidence and said they'd be in touch. My stomach fluttered with satisfaction. I wanted to scream, to laugh, to cry. Instead, I simply typed back, "You're welcome." But as much as I wanted him to lose his job, I wanted something more. I wanted him to feel humiliated. I wanted him to feel powerless. I wanted him to sit in the ruins of the life he built on lies and realize I was the one who knocked it down. So, I called Emily, my best friend, the one who had been there through every heartbreak, every high and low. "Jess," she answered, her voice thick with worry. "What's going on?" Ryan called me. "He's saying you're overreacting." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Overreacting? Emily, he's been lying about business trips for months. I caught him in a hotel room with another woman last night, and I recorded the whole thing." Her silence was heavy. When she finally spoke, it was low and furious. "That bastard?" "Yes," I said. "And now, I'm making sure he loses everything." Emily's voice steadied. "What do you need me to do?" For a moment, I almost cried, because that was the kind of friend she was. Always on my side, always ready. By late afternoon, the cracks were showing. Ryan sent a string of texts. "Please, Jess, don't do this. You're ruining both of us. We can fix it, I promise." Then, the last one that made me laugh out loud. You're being cruel. Cruel? No. Cruel was lying to your wife's face while sleeping with another woman. Cruel was making me feel like I was losing my mind when I questioned his trips. This wasn't cruelty. This was justice. That night, I cooked dinner for myself in silence. I set a plate across from me where he used to sit, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel lonely. I felt powerful. I looked at his empty chair and whispered, "Get comfortable with losing, Ryan, because I'm just getting started." My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from HR. They wanted me to confirm if the woman in the video was also an employee. I froze, of course. If she was, this wasn't just an affair. It was grounds for immediate termination. I thought back to her face, hiding behind him. Young, nervous. She could have easily been someone from his office. And if she was... Oh, Ryan had just handed me his career on a silver platter. I typed back, "Yes, she's on his team." I had no proof, not yet. But sometimes, lies are the quickest path to the truth. I sat back, sipping my wine, watching the bubbles rise in the glass. Tomorrow his world would crumble even more, and I'd be there to watch, to savor every second. Because Ryan thought I was the quiet, forgiving wife, but he was about to learn. I was the storm he never saw coming. The next morning I woke earlier than usual and made a list of names, dates, proof, and moves. I organized everything into folders for HR, for lawyers, and for anyone else who needed to know. The process felt clinical, righteous, and oddly cleansing. I slept a little that night, not from peace but from exhaustion, and I dreamed of a horizon without him. Freedom tasted like rain and sun. The next morning began with silence. No footsteps down the hallway. No clinking of Ryan's mug on the counter. Just me, my coffee, and the weight of what was coming. I checked my phone before taking a sip. The first notification made me smile. An email from HR. "Jessica, thank you for your cooperation. We've confirmed that the woman in the video is indeed an employee. This matter has now been escalated to senior management." I leaned back in my chair, letting the words sink in. Confirmed. Escalated. Ryan's golden boy image was unraveling faster than I imagined. Not even 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Ryan, finally brave enough to call. I answered, my voice calm, almost cheerful. "Good morning." His tone was frantic. "Jess, please listen to me. They called me into the office today. They know everything." "What did you do?" I almost laughed at his panic. "I didn't do anything, Ryan. You did. You lied. You cheated. You used your company's name to cover it up. All I did was show them who you really are." He groaned, his voice breaking. "You don't understand. This could ruin me. My career, my reputation." I cut him off. "Good. That's the point." There was a long pause on the line, just his shaky breathing. Then, almost in a whisper, he asked, "Do you still love me?" The question hit me like ice water. I stared at the wall, at the life we had built, the furniture, the framed photos, and for a moment I thought about all the years, the promises, the lies. I answered simply, "No." And I hung up. I set the phone down, my hands trembling, not from sadness, but from power. It was the first time I admitted it out loud. I didn't love him anymore, and I didn't have to. I was free. Later that day, Emily came over. She carried 2 cups of coffee and a bag of pastries, placing them on the table with a look that said everything. "So," she said, sliding into the chair opposite me, "what's the next step?" I smiled faintly. Watching him burn, she tilted her head. "You sure you're ready for that?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "More than ready." We sat together, and I told her everything. The emails, the video, HR's investigation. She listened, nodding, her fists clenching every time Ryan's name came up. When I was finished, she leaned in. "Jess, you're stronger than I've ever seen you. But don't just destroy his job. Make him regret every second he took you for granted." Her words planted a seed in my mind. Maybe this wasn't just about revenge anymore. Maybe it was about reclaiming every ounce of dignity he tried to strip from me. That evening, I dressed differently. No more oversized sweaters and messy hair. I slipped into a fitted blouse, straightened my hair, painted my lips red. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the broken wife anymore. I saw someone sharper, dangerous, beautiful in her rage. As if the universe wanted to test me, my phone buzzed again. It was Ryan. I debated ignoring him, but curiosity won. His voice was strained, desperate. "Jess, please. They suspended me today. HR told me I'm under review for termination. If I lose this job, I lose everything. Please, I'm begging you. Don't do this." I stayed silent, letting him squirm. He rushed on. "I'll cut it off with her. I'll fix everything. We can start over. Just delete the video, tell them it was a misunderstanding." I finally spoke, cold and steady. "Start over? Ryan, you buried us the moment you packed that suitcase for your fake trips. I don't want to start over. I want to end this." His voice cracked. "You'll regret this." I smiled to myself. "No, Ryan, you will." And I hung up again. That night, Emily and I toasted over wine. "To new beginnings," she said, clinking her glass against mine. I nodded, but inside the storm still raged. This wasn't the end. It was just the first domino. Tomorrow I'd go see a lawyer. Tomorrow I'd start building my new life piece by piece. But tonight, I let myself enjoy the sound of Ryan's world collapsing, because somewhere across town he was pacing, sweating, panicking. And I was here, calm, collected, smiling. I wasn't his wife anymore. I was his reckoning, and soon he would know just how far I was willing to go. The morning sunlight cut through the curtains, sharp and blinding, but I didn't hide from it. For the first time in months, I welcomed the day. Today wasn't about him anymore. Today was about me taking control. I showered, dressed in a navy blazer I hadn't worn since college interviews, and walked into the lawyer's office with my head high. The receptionist smiled politely, but I caught the quick glance at my ring finger. Still wearing the band, not for love, for strategy. The lawyer, Mr. Daniels, was older, with silver hair and glasses that slid down his nose. He gestured for me to sit, his voice calm and steady. "What brings you in today, Jessica?" I placed the folder on his desk and slid it toward him. He opened it and raised his brows as photo after photo spilled out. Hotel receipts, credit card charges, screenshots of texts, and finally the video. He didn't flinch. He didn't judge. He simply nodded. "I see. And what do you want from this?" I leaned forward, my voice steady but sharp. "I want him to lose everything he thinks he can keep. The house, the money, his job. I want him stripped bare." For a moment, silence hung between us. Then Mr. Daniels smiled faintly. "You've come prepared. That will make this easier." He began outlining my options. Divorce, asset division, spousal support. Words I never thought I'd care about suddenly felt like weapons. I could almost see Ryan's face when the papers landed in his hands. Halfway through the meeting, my phone buzzed again. I ignored it, but the screen flashed with his name. Ryan, always calling. Always begging, but not once had he apologized like he meant it. Not once had he accepted what he'd done. He was fighting for himself, never for me. By the time I walked out of that office, I had a plan. The divorce papers would be drafted within a week. The lawyer would ensure my rights were protected. And Ryan? Ryan would choke on the consequences. Outside, the autumn wind whipped through my hair. The city buzzed with people rushing, laughing, living, and I felt something I hadn't in months, alive. But when I got home, reality was waiting. Ryan's car sat in the driveway. I froze. He wasn't supposed to be there. My heart thudded as I pushed the door open. He was inside, pacing the living room, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot. "Jessica," he said, his voice breaking, "we need to talk." I dropped my bag on the counter, crossing my arms. "There's nothing to talk about." He ran a hand through his hair, desperate. "I lost my job. They fired me this morning. HR showed me the video, said I violated every policy in the book. Do you understand what you've done?" I laughed coldly. "What I've done? Ryan, you handed me the weapon. I just pulled the trigger." He stepped closer, eyes wild. "I can't lose everything. Please, Jess, we can figure this out. Don't throw us away." My voice sharpened. "You threw us away the moment you chose her over me." He flinched. "I didn't choose her." "Then who did you choose?" I demanded. He had no answer. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. Finally, he whispered, "I need you." The words bounced off me like they were nothing. Because I knew the truth. He didn't need me. He needed what I gave him. Stability, respectability, a home. And now, all of that was slipping through his fingers. I grabbed my phone from the counter and walked toward the stairs. As I passed him, I said quietly, "You'll get the papers soon." His face crumpled, his body sagging like the weight of the world crushed him all at once. But I didn't stop. I didn't comfort him. Not this time. Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door behind me, my chest rising and falling in sharp bursts. For years, I begged for his attention. Now he was begging for mine, but I had none left to give. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Not from sadness, but from anticipation. The war wasn't over. This was only the next battle, and tomorrow I'd win again. The morning started with silence. Not the peaceful kind. The heavy, suffocating silence of two people sharing the same roof, but living in different worlds. Ryan sat at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. His once perfect suit jacket hung wrinkled on the back of a chair. He looked smaller, defeated, and I couldn't bring myself to feel pity. I poured my own coffee, the steam curling upward like smoke from a fire. Without looking at him, I asked, "Did you sleep?" He muttered, "Barely." I sipped, calm. "Get used to it." He slammed his palm against the table, the sound sharp in the still air. "Jessica, this isn't you. You're not cruel. You're not vindictive. Why are you doing this?" I turned to him slowly, locking eyes. "You're right. This isn't me, but you made me this way." His face twisted, caught between guilt and rage. He tried again. "We can fix this. Counseling, whatever it takes, just don't leave me like this." I set my mug down carefully, deliberately. "You don't get to decide when I leave. You decided that the moment you opened that hotel room door." I left him there, broken, and went upstairs to pack a small bag. I wasn't running away. I was reclaiming space. A weekend at my sister's would give me clarity, and it would give him time to stew in the wreckage he created. As I zipped the bag shut, my phone buzzed. Not from Ryan, from an unknown number. Curious, I opened the message. It was a photo. Her, the other woman, standing outside her car, looking shaken. And the text beneath it read, "Leave him alone." "He's mine now." I froze, my stomach tightening. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was taunting me. When I walked downstairs, Ryan was still slumped at the table. I tossed the phone in front of him. His eyes widened. "She messaged you?" I folded my arms. "Guess she's not as discreet as you thought." He grabbed the phone, panic in his voice. "I'll handle it. I'll make her stop." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "Handle it? You couldn't even handle staying faithful." I left him sputtering and stormed out the door, my heels clicking against the driveway like gunshots. At my sister's house, I finally breathed. Her arms wrapped around me, warm and safe. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't need to. She just listened as I unloaded every detail, every betrayal, every plan. By the time I finished, she looked at me with pride. "You're stronger than you know," she said softly. And for the first time, I believed it. But strength didn't erase the unease creeping into my chest. That message from her, his mistress, lingered in my mind. It wasn't just bold. It was dangerous. The next evening, I got another text. No words this time. Just a picture of my house. Taken from the street. Taken at night. My blood ran cold. She was watching. Not just him. Me. I called Ryan immediately. When he answered, his voice was hoarse. "Jess?" "She's outside the house," I snapped. "Tell her to back off, or the next call I make is to the police." He swore under his breath. "I didn't ask for this. She's unhinged. I'll fix it, I promise." I hung up before he could say more. Fix it? He couldn't fix himself. And now his mess was spilling into my life. That night, lying awake in my sister's guest room, I stared at the ceiling again. But this time, I wasn't thinking about Ryan. I was thinking about her. The woman who thought she could replace me. The woman bold enough to stalk me. She didn't know who she was dealing with. If Ryan thought I was done with him, he was wrong. And if she thought she'd won, she was about to learn the hard way. I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. Tomorrow I'd make sure she regretted ever sending that message. The next morning, I woke with one thought burning in my mind. If she wanted a war, she had just declared it. I drove back to my house, the air heavy with tension. Every creak of the tires on the driveway made my heart pound harder. Ryan's car was there, parked crooked, like he hadn't even cared how he pulled in. I stepped out, scanning the street. No sign of her car, no sign of movement, but my gut told me she wasn't far. Inside, Ryan was pacing the living room, his hair messy, his shirt wrinkled. The man who used to look polished, controlled, perfect, now looked like a stranger unraveling. "You came back," he said, voice tight. "Not for you," I answered coldly. "For her." He ran his hand over his face, exhaling. "She won't stop calling me. She showed up here last night. I told her it's over, but she—" I cut him off sharply. "You told her it's over? You should have thought of that before you dragged her into my life." His face crumbled. "Jess, she's obsessed." "You don't understand," I leaned in, glaring. "No, you don't understand. She sent me pictures of my house. She's threatening me now, and if you don't shut this down, I will." Before he could argue, a knock echoed at the door. 3 sharp raps. My heart raced. I didn't need to guess who it was. Ryan froze, whispering, "Don't answer." I ignored him and yanked the door open. There she stood. The mistress. Her hair was perfectly styled, her lipstick too red, her dress clinging to her body like she wanted the whole world to know she wasn't ashamed. But her eyes, her eyes gave her away. Wild. Desperate. "Well," I said coolly, crossing my arms. "Looks like you finally decided to show your face." She smirked, stepping forward as if she owned the ground under her heels. "I'm not hiding anymore. He loves me, not you. You're just clinging to something that's already gone." Ryan stumbled to the door, panic in his voice. "Melissa, stop. Please." I snapped my head toward him, venom dripping from every syllable. "So she has a name. Melissa." The mistress lifted her chin proudly. "Yes, and soon everyone will know. His co-workers, his friends, his family. He doesn't belong to you anymore." I laughed. Not soft, not polite. A sharp, cutting laugh that made her blink. "Oh, sweetheart. You really think you've won, don't you?" Her smirk faltered just slightly. I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped the screen. A video played, Ryan's voice, shaky, confessing to the affair. His face pale, his hands trembling, and then my voice, calm and clear. "This recording has already been backed up. If anything happens to me, it goes public. And guess what? HR already has it too." Melissa's face drained of color. Her boldness cracked, revealing the panic underneath. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "Oh, I would." I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a deadly calm. "You see, Melissa, I don't lose. You thought you could sneak into my life, steal my husband, and walk away smiling? Wrong. I already burned his career. And if you push me further, I'll burn yours too." She swallowed hard, glancing at Ryan. But he was useless now. Sweating, trembling, eyes darting like a trapped animal. She had no ally left, Melissa hissed through clenched teeth. "You'll regret this." I tilted my head, smiling coldly. "No, you will." She stormed off the porch, her heels stabbing into the concrete like daggers. Her car roared to life, tires screeching as she sped away. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Ryan slumped against the wall, sliding to the floor. He looked up at me, defeated. "Jessica, what have you done?" I looked down at him, my voice steady, icy. "What you couldn't. I ended it." But inside, I knew it wasn't truly over. Melissa wasn't the kind of woman to walk away quietly, and Ryan wasn't the kind of man strong enough to stop her. No, this was just the beginning. I turned and walked upstairs, each step deliberate. Tomorrow I'd start the final stage, the stage where both of them would lose everything. And this time, I wouldn't even have to lift a finger. The day of the final hearing felt inevitable, like a storm breaking. I dressed in a navy suit and low heels, hair pulled back, face composed. Cameras filled the courtroom, phones glowed, reporters whispered. My folder of evidence sat heavy in my lap, each page a witness. Ryan looked hollow and small across from me. Melissa sat a few rows back, jaw tight, eyes darting. The judge called the case and the air tightened. My lawyer presented the video, the receipts, the timestamps. The screen showed Ryan in that hotel doorway, caught and exposed. The HR director testified about policy violations and misuse of company time. Melissa's lawyer argued consent, but the records were damning. There was no elegant story to cover the trail of receipts and messages. When the judge announced the rulings, it felt final. Ryan was ordered to repay bonuses, suspended during investigations, and formally censured in his file. Melissa's employment was terminated for conduct unbecoming. They stared at each other like people who had fallen off a cliff and found there was nothing below. Outside, the fallout was loud and small at once. Social threads buzzed, friends unfollowed, clients distanced, alliances broke. Their reputations cracked in a dozen private ways that public headlines couldn't measure. It wasn't revenge so much as consequences landing where they hurt most. Back home, the calls stopped being frantic and turned hollow. "I'm sorry," the messages read, thin and useless. I read them and felt only relief, cold and clean. I locked the doors, changed the accounts, and signed the papers Mr. Daniels had prepared. The house that felt like a trap became a place I could finally leave on my terms. Surprises came in quiet moments. Ryan's mother called, her voice small with sorrow for the family. A few friends reached out, ashamed they hadn't seen the signs. I forgave those who deserved it, not to absolve him, but to unburden myself. Forgiveness was a door I opened for me alone. I did not gloat over their ruin. There's a hollowness in watching someone fall. My victory was practical. A new lease in my name, accounts I controlled, an email offering a job I'd wanted before the scandal. I rebuilt carefully, each small step a brick toward a life that was mine. Months later, I walked through a sunlit park by my apartment. Children played, neighbors chatted, everything ordinary felt like a miracle. I carried coffee and read a short letter from Melissa. Regret and apology in simple sentences. I tucked it into a drawer without fanfare. Closure had come in unexpected forms. After the judge's ruling, civil matters moved quietly. Lawyers severed financial ties and negotiated repayments. I used part of the settlement to rent a sunlit apartment. Unpacking and arranging the space felt like reclaiming myself. Work shifted. A colleague recommended me for a leadership role, and I accepted. It paid well and offered a platform to teach what I'd learned. I built workshops on documenting misconduct and protecting digital evidence. I turned my experience into prevention work that mattered. At the shelter, women began to speak up. After one session, a woman hugged me and whispered, "You gave me courage." That gratitude mattered more than any headline. The hotel doorway memory softened into a chapter, not a wound. I rebuilt step by step until a new life stood in front of me. Months later, I met someone kind who knew my story and didn't flinch. We moved slowly and cautious. Trust returned on my terms. If you ask whether revenge tasted sweet, I will say this: the truest satisfaction was quiet. Mornings I woke calm. Nights I slept whole, mentoring women, signing a lease in my name. When memory creeps in, I remember the promise I whispered when the tracker blinked, never invisible again. I kept that promise. I survived, I rebuilt, and I lived well.